Worum geht's im ersten Band von Jake Djones und die Hüter der Zeit?
Jake Djones, a 14-year-old boy who discovers that his parents are lost in history, and he has to join this secret service called the History Keepers in order to track them down. Now, the History Keepers are a very special organisation of secret agents who travel to different dangerous parts of history to stop these dark forces from changing the course of history and of time and of destroying the world.
Was hat Sie dazu bewogen, den Roman Jake Djones und die Hüter der Zeit zu schreiben?
I always really loved adventure stories. The first books I read were the Narnia books, and I loved all the classic adventure stories, the Robert Louis Stevenson books, but I loved adventure films, particularly as well, Indiana Jones and James Bond, and I loved how you always travel to these, you escape to these incredibly exotic, exciting locations, and there were heroes with a sense of humour and diabolical villains and secret passageways leading to underground lairs and maps leading to treasure and gadgets and a lot of danger and romance and excitement and adventure and humour, and I always wanted to write my own version of one of these stories, and also I had loved history because I always imagined going back and living in a different time, and I loved all the heroes and villains from history, and really I had this idea to sort of set this adventure series that weaved its way, and it told the whole story of history and how people and events really changed the course of things and how we arrived at where we are today.
Mit welchem Charakter aus Ihrem Roman können Sie sich am meisten identifizieren?
Well, I would definitely say Jake, who's the main character, though he's only a 14-year-old schoolboy, but I really imagine back to when I was that age and I had quite an unconventional upbringing, a very eccentric family, and there was always a lot of crazy people around in my life. And we were always moving and going off on these adventures, and I always tried to behave in the right way in some difficult and dangerous times, and I tried to be as brave as I could and as kind as I could, and I tried really, I saw the book through the eyes of my 14-year-old self and how I felt, and maybe try to right some of the things that I probably got wrong at that time.
In Jake Djones und die Hüter der Zeit versetzen Sie die Helden des Romans zurück ins 16. Jahrhundert. Welche Epoche würden Sie selbst gerne besuchen?
Well, I chose the 16th century in the first place because it was an incredible time of change in the world. And there was a lot of exploration. It was the beginning of science. Some would say the beginning of a modern political system, social system. The art was, it was an amazing era for art, and so I really loved that period because it really created the world how it is now. But if I had to choose one period, I think I would go back to Roman times, where the second book is actually set in ancient Rome, just after the period of Augustus in the 1st century AD, because it was really this huge civilization and this magnificent civilization that had so much going for it, but it was also quite a cruel and bloodthirsty world, and those two facets together really intrigued me, and I would love to be able to travel back to ancient Rome and to see it at its absolute height.
Was finden Sie beim Schreiben am schwierigsten?
I think the most difficult sections of the book are really, I would say, the action scenes, of which play a very important part in the book. And I think, though they're exciting to read those scenes, and you read them very quickly, actually to write them, it's quite a slow, methodical process, much in the same way if you were filming an action sequence for a film, it can really take weeks, sometimes months, to actually put together a sequence, and everything has to be done in close-up and detail to make the whole thing really flow excitingly, and I find it the same writing those sequences. They take the most amount of work to really get right, so you can really imagine yourself in a battle or in a chariot race.
Sie schreiben auch das Drehbuch zur Verfilmung von Djones. Was sind die Unterschiede zwischen der Arbeit am Drehbuch und dem Schreiben eines Romans?
Really, the main difference is the length. A screenplay is traditionally about 100 pages long. A novel, this is nearly 400 pages. You need to lose a lot whilst really maintaining the right feel and the essence of the book. And the way to do that, or the way we're doing it in this instance, is really to just focus on the story of Jake and his emotional journey throughout, of the person he starts to the person he becomes at the end, to really pull you into his story, so you see the story through his eyes, and really everything else has to be taken away and just put back together in the most effective and cohesive way for that story to work.
Wie sehen Ihre weiteren Pläne für die Serie aus?
So this is obviously the first book. The series, there will be a number of books, and it has an episodic nature in as much as that each book will take place largely in a different time period on a particular mission that they've been sent on. And the first book, they go to Renaissance time, the second book to Roman times, the third book to ancient China in the time of Kublai Khan, when Marco Polo was allegedly travelling around China. There might be further episodes in Aztec Mexico, in ancient Egypt. But also, importantly, there is a real super story, a through story that will travel throughout the books, because the characters in the books become older. And also, there are important elements, such as in the book one, he discovers obviously that his parents are missing, but he discovers also that his brother, to whom he was truly devoted, and who he thought had tragically died 3 years ago on a school trip, was also a secret agent, and he is also potentially lost somewhere in history. So a lot of there's a quest element that will run throughout the books of will Jake ever find his brother. At the same time, the forces of darkness, the various dynasties that are trying to pull history and the world apart, will gradually gather together and form eventually into a really terrifying and formidable force, and the stakes will just become higher, and everything will become more dangerous and exciting.
So I really just want to say thank you to all the readers in Germany, Austria and Switzerland for going out of your way to pick up the book, to buy the book. Obviously there would be no book if it wasn't for you reading it, and I just want to thank you for your enthusiasm. It really means so much to me.